Welcome back to English Unfiltered, the podcast where we explore real conversations in English. I'm Alex.
And I'm Jamie. And today we're diving into, well, a pretty sneaky habit that might actually be holding you back from sounding totally natural in English.
Right, yeah. This is a deep dive into something you probably do without even realizing it. I mean, imagine you've studied a new language for like 3 solid years. You know the vocabulary. You have basically mastered all the complex grammar rules.
Oh, totally. You can read novels or, listen to the news without missing a single beat. Your comprehension is just totally locked in.
Exactly. But then you step out into the real world and you actually try to talk to a native speaker. And you always feel like a half second behind the rhythm of the conversation.
Yeah, that slight delay.
Right. You are keeping up, sure, but there is this invisible friction making every single interaction feel like a massive cognitive effort. Like your brain is just working overtime.
It is the ultimate invisible plateau for language learners. And today, our mission is to uncover the mechanics of this hidden habit, understand why your brain clings to it so desperately, and, figure out how to finally shut it down.
Because what's actually happening, and this is wild, is that you are secretly translating in your head, and your brain is hiding it from you.
Yeah, the most insidious part of this is what cognitive scientists call the illusion of automatic fluency.
Right.
A lot of you listening right now might be thinking, well, not me, I stopped translating words in my head months ago. But when we really look at how the brain processes language, it suggests otherwise.
Wait, really? So even advanced learners are doing it?
Oh, absolutely. When you start getting proficient at a language, the internal translation process doesn't actually stop. It just speeds up.
Wow, okay.
It accelerates to the point of becoming this highly efficient micro-habit. I mean, when you first start learning, translating is a conscious, laborious effort, right?
Yeah, you hear a word, you mentally search for the equivalent in your native language, you finally find it, and then you understand. It takes forever.
Exactly. But as you practice, that search time drops. It goes from 3 seconds to 1 second to a fraction of a millisecond. It gets so fast that it creates this incredibly convincing illusion that it has disappeared entirely.
So you feel like you're just understanding the language naturally.
Right. But the neurological pathway of translation, that actual brain wiring, is still being triggered in the background.
But I was thinking about how to visualize this, because it's really hard to fight a habit you can't even feel.
Mm-hmm.
It's remarkably similar to like a background app running on your smartphone.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, because you're looking at your home screen.
Yeah.
Right. And everything looks perfectly clean. No apps appear to be open in the task manager. You think your phone is fully optimized and ready to go.
Right. It looks fine on the surface.
But deep in the background, there's this heavy navigation app continuously pinging a satellite, refreshing its location data, and quietly siphoning off your battery. You don't actively see the app, but it is compromising the processing power of everything else you try to do.
That invisible drain is exactly what's happening in the language center of your brain. On the surface, your conversation seems totally fine.
Yeah.
But the system is fundamentally lagging because critical cognitive resources are being siphoned off by that background translation process. And the real danger here isn't just the sheer computing power it takes to translate.
Right. It's the lack of awareness.
Right, exactly. If you firmly believe you aren't translating anymore, you completely stop trying to fix the friction. You just assume, oh, I must have a vocabulary problem.
So you go and memorize like 500 new flashcards, which doesn't actually solve the core mechanical issue at all.
Not even a little bit.
The underlying system is still totally flawed.
Yeah, you are just adding more data for that background app to process. To really understand why this is so detrimental, we have to look at the neurolinguistics, like the actual physical pathways in your brain.
Okay, break that down for us.
So think of your native language as a heavily paved, multi-lane superhighway. I mean, it has been under construction since the day you were born. The neural pathways are incredibly thick and heavily myelinated.
Myelinated, that's like insulation for the nerves, right?
Exactly. It's a biological term that basically just means electrical signals can travel across those nerve paths incredibly fast.
Got it.
Now, your target language, the new English you're learning, is on the other hand basically a dirt path you just started clearing a couple of years ago.
Which means when the brain is put under pressure during a real conversation, it's naturally going to look for the most efficient route.
Always. The brain is an incredibly lazy organ when it comes to energy conservation. It always prefers the path of least metabolic resistance.
Right.
So, when you hear a sentence in your new language, your brain has a choice. It can either process the meaning entirely on that newly formed bumpy dirt path, or it can quickly route the signal over to the massive superhighway of their native language, process the meaning there, and then route it back.
Wow. And even though routing it to the superhighway adds a massive detour, the brain still defaults to it.
Yeah, because traveling on the native highway is just metabolically cheaper, it takes less energy, and it feels infinitely safer to your brain.
Well, that makes a ton of sense from a biological perspective.
Yeah.
But let's bring this into the real world for a second.
Okay.
Since this detour over the native superhighway is happening so incredibly fast, I mean, so fast we don't even consciously register the diversion, how exactly does this split-second background habit actively harm our communication?
That's the big question.
Right. If the brain processes it in a fraction of a millisecond, why does that tiny, tiny delay actually matter?
It matters because human conversation is highly mechanical. It relies heavily on rhythm. This hidden habit basically breaks down into a rigid 3-step cognitive sequence.
Okay, what are the steps?
Step 1, you hear something in the target language. Step 2, your brain routes it to the native superhighway to process the meaning and draft a response. Step 3, you translate that draft back into the target language to actually speak. That sequence inherently creates a micro delay. It really doesn't matter how fast step 2 is. It is still an extra stop on the train line.
So hear the target, route to native, formulate in native, translate back to target, and finally speak.
Exactly.
That is a massive amount of cognitive juggling just to answer a basic question like, how was your weekend?
And that juggling completely destroys the rhythm of a natural interaction. You know, real conversation is often compared to a fast-paced game of tennis.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Right. It is entirely about anticipation, momentum, and an immediate return. When the ball comes over the net, you just hit it back. But this 3-step translation process forces you to catch the ball, hold it, inspect it, check the brand of the tennis ball, think about the physics of your swing, and then finally hit it back.
And by the time you actually return the serve, the rhythm of the game is completely broken. Your opponent is just standing there wondering what just happened.
Exactly. That tiny split-second delay makes you sound hesitant and unnatural, regardless of how grammatically perfect your response actually is.
But wait, hold on a second. Let me push back on that a bit because I know what people are thinking.
Sure, go for it.
If I don't run it through my native language first, how do I know I'm not about to say something completely nonsensical?
Right, the fear of making a mistake.
Yeah. For a lot of learners, that internal translation feels like a necessary safety net to avoid, embarrassing themselves. Like if I am talking about a complex topic at work, I want to make absolutely sure I understand the nuance perfectly before I open my mouth.
That instinct is so incredibly common, and it stems directly from how languages are traditionally taught in schools. Well, in an academic setting, you are graded on perfect comprehension and flawless output. A 99% is an A, but an 85% is a B. We are totally conditioned to believe that comprehension must be absolute.
Oh, right. We treat conversations like exams.
Exactly. But when we look at how natural language actually functions in the wild, the pursuit of perfect understanding via translation actively damages the interaction.
Because you are sacrificing the entire momentum of the conversation just to run a personal safety check.
Spot on. You are prioritizing your own internal comfort over the external flow of the interaction. When you pause to run that translation safety check, the native speaker you are talking to physically feels that pause.
Oh, definitely. You can see it in their face.
Yes. The eye contact shifts slightly, the conversational momentum drops. This is a really stark point that a lot of successful polyglots, people who speak multiple languages, constantly make. Fluency isn't about being a walking, flawless dictionary. It's about maintaining the interpersonal connection. When you insist on translating every single word for perfect accuracy, you are basically pausing a live movie to read the subtitles.
Oh, wow. That is a harsh reality for perfectionists. You pause the live movie to read the subtitles. You guarantee you get the perfect, nuanced meaning of the dialogue, sure. But in doing so, you completely ruin the viewing experience for yourself and for everyone else in the room.
Right.
You lose the emotion, the pacing, and just the spontaneous joy of the moment.
And that leads directly to the major paradigm shift we need to talk about. If we want to achieve real fluency, we have to fundamentally redefine what native speakers actually do in a conversation.
Which is what?
Well, they do not draft essays in their heads before they speak. They do not run safety checks. They just react.
And their reactions aren't always these beautiful poetic constructs either. I mean, when you actually listen to a recording of native speakers talking to each other, it is messy.
So messy.
It's full of frightenings, false starts, and incredibly simple filler words.
If you just listen to real conversations, you hear it immediately. Natural speakers rely heavily on remarkably simple ideas and short phrases just to maintain the rhythm of that tennis match.
All right.
They use filler phrases to keep the ball in the air while they figure out what they actually want to say next. Things like, I don't know, maybe, let's see, or that's interesting.
Which points out this massive irony in how we learn English. I mean, language learners will sweat bullets trying to build these massive, complex, grammatically flawless sentences in their heads.
Oh, I am.
They think dropping some advanced, subjunctive clause into a casual chat about the weather is what proves they are fluent. Meanwhile, true fluency, the kind that actually feels natural to the person you were talking to, relies heavily on the absolute shortest, simplest reactions.
It is the ultimate paradox of language acquisition. You spend years studying advanced grammar so you can sound fluent, but true conversational fluency often requires you to intentionally abandon that complex grammar in favor of immediate raw reactions. But the key insight from cognitive linguistics is that these simple phrases, like let's see or maybe, are not just easy filler words. They're actually powerful cognitive tools.
Wait, how so? How does intentionally relying on a basic phrase like let's see actually help a learner bypass that heavily paved native superhighway?
Okay, think of those short phrases as a cognitive firewall.
A firewall, like a security system that blocks bad connections.
Exactly. When someone asks you a complex question in English, your brain panics a little. The silence feels deafening. And your instinct, that background app we talked about, wants to immediately route the problem to your native language to process it safely.
Right. The brain wants to take the exit ramp.
Yes. But if you train yourself to instantly react with a pre-packaged phrase in English like, let me think about that for a second, you accomplish two vital things. First, you keep the conversational tennis ball in play, signaling to the other person that you are engaged.
And second, you are physically preventing your brain from making that detour to your native language.
Exactly. By forcing your mouth to speak an English phrase right away, you lock your brain's language center into English. The firewall goes up.
Wow.
You basically buy yourself 1 or 2 seconds of cognitive runway to fetch the necessary vocabulary on the new dirt path without ever allowing your brain to switch back to the native superhighway. You are responding directly to the stimulus with a learned reflex.
That is brilliant. It is literally a deliberate hijacking of the brain's default routing system. You use the simple phrase to block the exit ramp to your native language. And over time, I guess, as you force the brain to stay on the dirt path, that path gets wider. It gets paved, the myelination increases, and it eventually becomes a superhighway of its own.
That is the physiological reality of fluency right there. By starring that background translation app of its power, the English pathways strengthen. You learn to trust the rhythm of the conversation rather than the safety net of your native tongue.
You stop building perfect, risk-free sentences, and you start actually communicating.
Yes. If there is one overarching thesis to take away from all this cognitive research and all these polyglot strategies, it's that your brain's safety net is actually a trap.
A trap, yeah.
The desire to perfectly comprehend everything before you speak is the exact mechanism preventing you from sounding natural. True fluency isn't a measure of how many words you know or how perfectly you can conjugate a verb. It is fundamentally about reducing the distance between understanding and speaking.
It is about closing the gap, the physical, temporal distance between hearing the sound waves hit your ear and opening your mouth to respond. The shorter that distance, the more fluent you are perceived to be.
Absolutely.
Which is just an incredibly liberating shift in mindset. You're training grammatical invincibility for actual human interaction. You don't need to be a walking thesaurus.
No, not at all.
You just need to be present, close the gap, and keep the connection alive. We spend years grading ourselves on a totally different rubric. We grade ourselves on accuracy, while the native speakers we are talking to are simply grading us on conversational flow and timing.
And timing dictates trust.
Ooh, say more about that.
When the timing is natural, the native speaker relaxes. They stop subconsciously adjusting their speech to accommodate you as a learner, and they just talk to you like a normal person. And that is when the real magic of language learning happens.
That is so true. So as we wrap up this deep dive today, we want to leave you with something to actively monitor the next time you step out into the world.
Yeah, try this out.
The next time you find yourself in a fast-paced English conversation, take a moment to observe your own internal mechanics. Watch your mind. Are you genuinely reacting to the person in front of you? Or are you secretly running a split-second translation script in the background?
Catch yourself pausing the movie. Notice when you try to route the signal to your native superhighway, and just see what happens when you throw up a cognitive firewall instead. Just say, let me think about that, and stay in English.
Because the moment you become aware of the invisible habit is the exact moment you gain the power to break it.
Absolutely. Let go of the perfect translation.
Trust the dirt path, react in the moment, and keep the conversation flowing. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into real English fluency. Take care, everyone.